Cheshire, Connecticut, was the epitome of small-town America. Safe, serene, and picturesque. Families thrived in its close-knit community, and crime was almost non-existent. The town was known for its strong sense of unity, where neighbors trusted one another, and children played freely in the streets. But on July 22, 2007, that sense of security was irrevocably destroyed when a seemingly routine home invasion escalated into one of the most horrific crimes in Connecticut's history. This crime, now known as the Cheshire Murders, would leave an indelible mark on the state and the nation. The victims were the Petit family. Dr. William Petit, a respected endocrinologist, his wife, Jennifer Hawke-Petit, a beloved nurse, and their two daughters, 17-year-old Hayley and 11-year-old Michaela. Their lives, once full of promise and joy, would be brutally stolen in a crime so heinous that it sent shockwaves across the nation, leading to intense scrutiny of the justice system and parole policies. The brutality inflicted upon this innocent family would expose glaring flaws in the system meant to protect them. What happened in Cheshire that night would forever redefine what it meant to feel safe in one's own home. As darkness fell over the Petit household, two career criminals, Stephen Hayes and Joshua Komisarjevsky, prowled the quiet streets of Cheshire, looking for a target. These men were no strangers to crime, having extensive criminal backgrounds. Both had been recently released on parole, despite their lengthy histories of burglary and violent offenses. Their past convictions should have served as warnings, but the system had failed to keep them behind bars. The two men had already selected their victims earlier that day when Komisarjevsky followed Jennifer and Michaela from a supermarket to their home. They observed the Petit's house, noting its layout and the family's routine. The pair had a plan: break in, rob the family, and leave. But once inside, their intentions turned far more sinister. What should have been a burglary transformed into an unspeakable nightmare that would haunt the town forever. The two men slipped into the Petit home through an unlocked basement door. Dr. Petit, asleep on a couch in the sunroom, was their first victim. Before he could react, he was bludgeoned with a baseball bat and tied up in the basement, bloodied and barely conscious. Upstairs, Jennifer and the girls were sleeping soundly, unaware of the horror that had invaded their home. Their peaceful world would be turned into a house of horrors within moments. What started as a robbery soon spiraled into brutality beyond comprehension. The men bound Jennifer and her daughters, restraining them in separate rooms. As the hours passed, the invaders ransacked the home, searching for valuables. But their greed was not limited to money. Their sadistic cruelty knew no bounds, and the Petit family would soon endure the unimaginable. At dawn, Hayes forced Jennifer to accompany him to a local Bank of America branch to withdraw $15,000 from her account. She complied, but in a desperate attempt to save her family, she discreetly told the bank teller that her family was being held hostage. The bank immediately alerted the police, but tragically, the response was too slow. Law enforcement, bound by protocol and misinformation about the gravity of the situation, hesitated to storm the house, believing they had more time to act. The wheels of justice turned at a pace far too sluggish for the dire circumstances inside the Petit home. While Jennifer was gone, Komisarjevsky turned his attention to Michaela, photographing her in a horrifying display of depravity. The psychological torment inflicted upon the young girl was beyond comprehension. By the time Hayes and Jennifer returned, the situation had escalated beyond control. Jennifer was raped and then strangled to death by Hayes, her lifeless body left on the living room floor. The mother who had desperately tried to save her family had become the latest victim of the monstrous attack unfolding in her own home. With Jennifer dead, the killers decided to leave no witnesses. They doused the home with gasoline and lit a match. Michaela and Hayley, still tied to their beds, had no chance of escape. As flames consumed the house, Hayley broke free and tried to run, but she collapsed near the staircase, overcome by smoke and fire. Michaela perished in her room, never making it out. The flames grew higher, swallowing the home whole and erasing the evidence of the horror that had transpired within its walls. Dr. Petit, by some miracle, managed to untie himself and crawl out of the basement door. Burned, beaten, and covered in blood, he staggered to a neighbor's house, crying out for help. But it was too late for his wife and daughters. The fire had taken them. The man who had once had a perfect family was now the lone survivor of an atrocity too gruesome to fathom. As the house was engulfed in flames, Hayes and Komisarjevsky attempted to flee in the Petit's vehicle, but they were quickly intercepted by police. Their capture marked the beginning of a long and emotionally charged legal battle. Justice had begun to take its course, but for the Petit family, there would never be true closure. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Komisarjevsky had documented his crimes in chilling detail in his journal, and both men left behind DNA, fingerprints, and surveillance footage from the bank visit. Their lack of remorse was chilling, and their depravity stunned even the most seasoned law enforcement officers. The trials would be some of the most harrowing in Connecticut's history. In 2010, Stephen Hayes was convicted of multiple counts of murder, sexual assault, kidnapping, and arson. He was sentenced to death. A year later, Komisarjevsky faced trial and received the same verdict. However, in 2015, Connecticut abolished the death penalty, and their sentences were commuted to life without parole. The two men who had destroyed a family would never walk free again. Even more than a decade later, the tragedy of the Petit family continues to haunt those who hear it. But through the work of the Petit Family Foundation, their legacy is one of hope, kindness, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place, in defiance of the evil that tried to destroy them. The loss of the Petit women will never be forgotten, and their light continues to shine through the work of those who fight for justice in their memory. The Petit Family Foundation continues to fund medical research, education, and programs supporting victims of violence. Dr. William Petit, despite his unimaginable loss, has become a beacon of resilience, dedicating his life to ensuring his family's deaths were not in vain. His advocacy has led to discussions about parole reform and stronger laws for repeat offenders, ensuring tragedies like this are prevented in the future. The Cheshire Murders serve as both a warning and a lesson, a story that must never be forgotten.